So it's Pixar next, in a film where some words in Italian for some reason, because they might be Italian words that the studio or the audience would recognise, and that's about the amount of thought that went into Luca. To give away my thoughts there already. Scott.
Yes, Luca.
I don't want to be negative, but
Luca, the latest Pixar film is a fairly broad adaptation of the Suzanne Vega song, it must be said, although he does live fairly high up at some points in the film, which is probably a reference to the second floor. That's probably what happened. Yes, as you say, off the shores of Italy, a young sea monster, Luca, voiced by Jacob Tremblay, lives a sheltered life herding goatfish, fearing the vicious land monsters that stalk the local town of Porto Rosso, although he cannot help but be curious about it. That curiosity leads him to Jack Dylan Grazer's Alberto, a slightly older sea monster, who spends much of his time on land and who helps Luca adjust to the magical changes that occur to a young boy as he moves from the sea to the land, that being looking like a common or garden human boy when dry and a sea monster when wet. The two become fast friends, in part over a shared love of the Vespa they see in one of Alberto's posters, but Luca's parents find out about his expeditions on land and threaten to send Luca to the deep sea. Not fancying a diet of whale carcass, Luca and Alberto go on the lam to Porto Rosso, where they meet Emma Berman's Julia, a fellow outcast and an ally against the local bully Ercole. Another friendship forms, this time with the goal of winning the Porto Rosso Cup Triathlon, with the funds affording them an opportunity to buy a rather less cosmetically impressive Vespa than they might have hoped for. Needless to say, things don't go to plan, with Luca's parents searching for him and a constant threat of, well, any water at all, revealing the sea monstericity of Luca and Alberto, making them fair game for the town's bounty hunters, and Ercole and his henchmen being a continual thorn in their sides. Now, you could reasonably accuse this film of being Pixar by numbers, and I think in a plotted recap it certainly comes across that way. In fact, it doesn't sound all that far away from Onward, which isn't a good sign. But I think Luca has a great deal more heart to it than we've seen from Pixar lately, and even it's ploughing a fairly familiar field. This is the most fun I've had watching one of their films since Coco. This, admittedly, is not a high bar. It's funny, has an abundance of charm, and it captures the feelings of childhood friendships quite well. My heart was warmed. Now, I don't think I've got a great deal more to say about Luca, so for once I'll just resist the urge to dribble on and fill time, and recommend it to just about everyone, bar hardcore Pixar haters, which apparently you are, Drew.
I may be becoming one. Yeah, I think Pixar has been on a very steady and inexorable downward trend for a long time now.
Yeah, I remember I referenced Onward specifically because I didn't think much of Onward, but I didn't hate it. But I remember you being quite vitriolic about it, so I imagine you're having much the same feeling about this. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a trend, not a like a
disastrous drop off.
Because Toy Story 4 was not excellent like the Toy Story films, but it was very good. Soul I quite enjoyed, but Onward was garbage. This is also garbage. It's worse than Onward. It's awful. It's only like 90 minutes and it feels like 3 hours. It's so bad. I did not like a single thing about this. It's
interesting.
Quite amused by quite how differently we feel about this film, Scott. Yeah, I just didn't buy the friendship at all. I thought the acting was terrible. The writing was appalling. The humour was absent. And I don't want to not like films. Again, my favourite genre is good film.
Yeah.
I just haven't seen any lately. I don't like it. I don't set out to. I'll admit sometimes tearing a film apart that I didn't enjoy is.
Yes. I don't set out to watch bad films apart from going to see Fast and Furious 9.
Yes, but that was a slightly different thing. But, I thought Luca was terrible. The humour was completely absent. The characters weren't characters, and I just didn't buy the friendship, and it's like, it has that kind of traditional thing of, like you've got a couple of friends and then the girl joins the group and like one resents the other because one's getting on with the girl or whatever. But they'd been knowing each other for 3 days. Literally 3 days. Oh, right, yeah, okay. And ridiculously accelerated timelines is a particular bugbear of mine, I've come to realise. And there are hints there, actually, that they might have done something interesting, because I had the idea that there was at least a hint there that whichever one isn't... Who's the slightly taller one with more hair?
That'll be Alberto then.
Alberto. Yeah. They don't have characters, Scott. I can't. They had no personality. That guy. Yeah, I thought that perhaps had feelings for Luca himself. But no, this is a Disney film. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to spend too long on this because I've got other films to hate instead. The big problem I had, it's like from the, I you know, like you as well, Scott, but so I think Craig too. All three of us, like some of the best Pixar stuff is some of the best stuff ever. Toy Story 2 and 3, Coco. Remember that was the one we've all loved recently.
Yeah.
But we've never been like the Pixar can do no wrong thing, which so many people seem to think. Presumably those people haven't seen the Cars films because they're terrible. But from the beginning, one of the things that really marked out Pixar films was that they were genuine family films.
Yeah.
Really, like, they were for all ages. It often wasn't a case of, you know, there was a joke for the adults and a joke for the kid. Like, everyone was laughing at the same thing. And we found this is the first Pixar film that I've watched that I feel was genuinely just a kid's film. That was my really strong feeling about it. It's like they finally made one that was like made for 6-year-olds, not for adults, and I think that's why I just clearly you feel differently. I'm gesticulating wildly here because for the radio, but for me this just felt like it was actually a kids film. It had sort of kids stakes and kids level of dialogue, and it seemed to me so boring and soulless and empty. And honestly, the only I'm not saying this just to be a getter or anything like that. No, the only thing in the whole film that I enjoyed was the at the end of the race when it was raining and how the cobbles looked, the light on the cobbles at the end. Like, that's a really nice effect.
That's a good shader, that is.
Yep. I didn't enjoy the rest of it at all.
Oh, fair enough. I won't deny your lived experience, but no, I quite enjoyed most of this. I thought the characters were actually quite well observed. I thought most of the relationships were sort of, clearly it's kids, so it has a certain kiddish feeling towards it. But most of it seemed fairly well observed, evoked a certain feeling of nostalgia for that kind of era of my own childhood. So, I clearly got much more out of it from you, and it's certainly by no means the funniest Pixar film or anything like that, but I found it tolerably amusing all the way throughout. So, clearly, obviously, got much more out of it than you did, and I'm glad for that. So,
yes,
you'll take that for what I will.
I'm glad for you.
Instead
of I'm not glad for me. I'm glad for you.
There's been a few times where you convinced me a film that I liked was actually awful, but no, this is not one of them. I still quite enjoyed this one, so I'd happily watch it again at some point in the future. So, yeah.
No, this is one. This may be the worst Pixar film ever. I don't say that lightly because I've seen Cars 3. And Cars, oh God! But no, I
would say if you say this is worse than Cars 3, I think you may actually be on crack. I think we might have to go and get you some. We're going to have to get you some lithium to get your moods back under control, because this can't be right. That is. So I will not abide that, sir. I will not abide that.
Oh, so I was about to say that, like, as well as like not setting out to not enjoy films, like, the fact that there's not like Black Widow is the peak of my enjoyment for the films in this episode we're covering, Scott. I'm wondering whether maybe there was something like wrong with me, but partly because the sun's been out, but my mood's been better in the last couple of weeks than it's been for like a year. So I honestly don't think it's that. And then we did those Alex de la Iglesia films recently, including one that I had hated in the past and quite liked it this time round. So no, I don't think it's me. I think that you're wrong, and anybody who likes this fish is wrong, and I'm right because I'm the final arbiter of taste.
It's the kids that are wrong.
I didn't mean to say all of that out loud right enough, but
there's a Simpsons reference for everything, isn't there?
No, it's the thing. It's the first time. Well, no, it's not definitely the first time again the Cars films, but it's a Pixar film I just didn't think had any magic of any kind in it at all. Normally I can find something. I've always loved Pixar's Light, which is what's kind of into that, that rainy cobbles thing at the end. But even that's like, no. It left me so cold, and I'm really disappointed by that.
It's almost as though it was a DreamWorks film.
I don't know if you're expecting me to say a steady on or something.
No.
I'm kind of just mostly nodding along with that. Right?